curious where MaykaS doesn't really want to play against any of these decks. He has this super mid-ranged focused lineup, which usually, I mean, we saw him ban Draven Ezreal a little bit earlier on in the top cut, and then you also really don't want to play against Ruination decks. That's a little different because Gravetrayal doesn't play Ruination, so it makes sense that the Spooky Karma is absolutely not the ban. Without Ruination, this deck doesn't have efficient board wipes against Frostbite midrange and Shen J4. I am a little curious as to whether or not Ezreal Draven was still the go-to ban, or if we felt like we needed to ban Anivia because it does still have all these avalanches and blighted ravines and things like that. But I think that given the lack of Ruination in either of these decks for Gravetrayal, that MaykaS is actually going to be pretty heavily favored here.
Yeah, I mean, you blew my mind when we were talking about that in the semifinals, Boulevard. Gravetrayal, no Ruination in 2 control decks that have pretty much played Ruination in every competitive version of those decks since their initial inception, at least from what I can remember anyways. And something like Midrange Frostbite even. I mean, Ruination is huge in this matchup, right? Like, you want Ruination to be able to clear the entire board of Yetis and Trappers and LeBlancs and
like
Ashe
Withering Wail and Vile Feast and things like that do nothing in this matchup. Even when they're Karma, they're just an Avalanche, which is something that Frostbite midrange doesn't really care about. I mean, this is a deck that was kind of brought out as a late-stage counter to things like TLC. Just saying, hey, your Freljord and Shadow Isle board wipes are inefficient against what I have brought to the table, and now we just have the Shadow Isle side of that. And I would not be surprised if Anivia is the other deck left open, and we just stuck our guns and said, I'm banning Draven Ezreal.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, you know, knowing there's no Ruination, I think that is the right choice. I really do. So very curious to see what the second deck is going to be here for Gravetrayal and MaykaS for that matter. But we get an early Ashe, and we still get some mana to play with here to get down some additional units. Could also toss down an Omen Hawk, which would still leave us both Flash Freeze and Brittle Steel available. As of right now, holding up the 5th mana doesn't really do too much for us, so I don't see why that won't be the case. But we are going to get the stun to basically shut down the whole turn. So Concussive Palm doing a lot of work here. Going to prevent basically all of the damage. Be curious to see if MaykaS does go in with the Trapper and the Omen Hawk here, as we do have the Brittle Steel to at least save the Trapper and win the board anyways, which this is even better. Not to harp on this Ruination thing even more, but these Frostbite trades are going to be great.
Well, I was a little worried that, like, if MaykaS throws out Brittle Steel, Gravetrayal can just box.
Yeah, and maybe, I don't know if that's what we're playing around though. You think? I mean,
MaykaS is on another level, especially this weekend. He has been playing out of his mind in not the best way possible. I don't mean to say he's been playing insane. I mean, like, he has made some insane plays in the sense that doesn't make any sense, and then it worked out for him. You know, thinking back to yesterday, a little bit of a misstep on a Gangplank level up, and then getting the perfect top deck off the River Shaper anyway to completely close out the game in the same turn. But you know, MaykaS, I'm not going to sit here and really question their plays too deeply, and I think part of it actually could have been just playing around the box, understanding that that's really the big punish in a situation like that. But you kind of got to take these Brittle Steel trades where you can get them, right? You just want to use this card to level the Ashe, and if you can get an effective trade with it, great, awesome. But it's not something that you should really be expecting to happen too often.
I mean, there is always the consideration. I feel like I'm always the one to say this. The Ashe OTK. Maybe you save the Brittle Steel to have a surprise attack with the Ashe, you know, from nowhere. I don't know if that's why we're saving it here, but all I can tell you is this board is about to get really big real fast. I'm going to see if LeBlanc or the Trapper is going to come down too.
If I was MaykaS, I'd probably pass here. Just, you know, you've already played around the box a little bit, but now the box is going to get an absolute smorgasbord of value. Pushing a lot of damage onto these Yetis as well, which is important because now I believe one of them is set up on the next turn for a Withering Wail Vile Feast.
Yeah. I mean, that is only the one copy of box, though. So there's that taken into consideration. The issue is going to be Karma is just chilling. And all right.
Brood Awakening.
That is actually really good.
Brood Awakening used to be played in control decks.
Yeah.
It really rose to prominence in, like, Karina control, not only as a way for, you know, your Elise to level and push damage in the early game, but against decks like Frostbite midrange and even the Shen J4 that we see in the lineup of MaykaS, it was a wall. Yeah. It was so hard to get through, and it pushed damage back onto your units. It was insane at 5 mana. The perfect 5.5 mana card, Brood Awakening.
Yeah, it's we always joke about that 5.5 mana. Another Palm coming out though, really trying to prevent those free frost bites from coming out. So doing a lot of work preventing that Ash level up, like you were talking about earlier. And we are going to get the attack. The trade here as well, going to prevent a decent amount of damage. Also going to be taking a decent amount of damage here if we do just go ahead and submit this through here. Brittle Steel doesn't really get... actually, on the tail of the dragon, Brittle Steel does a lot.
Brittle Steel looks pretty good on the tail.
Yep, yeah.
That's probably as much value as you're ever going to get out of it, right? And you could use the Troll Chant here, but because you are playing against a deck that is primarily damage-based removal, I think you can find more value for that Troll Chant later on.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you want to, like, Brittle Culling the Karma.
Oh, that is a consideration. But nope, looks like we are just going to go ahead and Brittle the Tail. I mean, you kind of always have that available, though. You still have Flash Freeze and Culling on the Karma if you really want to go that route. But that is something to take into consideration. Maybe if it's, closer to turn 10, that's kind of our break glass in case of emergency, right? You just, all right, well, we don't want Karma staying there leveled. So let's go ahead and get her off the board. But by killing a Karma, all right, now you activate Rekindler. So what are you really doing?
And now we get a Thresh out of Gravetrayal. Looking pretty juicy into the board. Of course, has the capabilities to kill the Ash or a Yeti. MaykaS has a little bit to say about that, but MaykaS running into a problem that Frostbite midrange sometimes does where your units are just not coming. You find a lot of Frostbite spells, and especially in a matchup like this where they're not particularly useful, MaykaS is just finding the wrong half of the deck. This is where you want to find your Averrosion Hearthguards and your, actually, a Trifarian Assessor would blow this game wide open for MaykaS, but actually checking to see if the Incisive Tactician is in here, and he is.
Mm-hmm.
But instead we find all the Frostbite spells. Even Reckoning would feel pretty okay here.
Yeah, Reckoning not bad. Get another Yeti off the top, and I mean, these Yetis are coming in pretty clutch too.
Yeah, I mean, Avarice and Trapper is really good against control. It's usually very difficult for these 5/5s to be dealt with by them. Gravetrayal pushing the damage with the box and getting a kill onto a LeBlanc was absolutely massive, and I think is one of the defining moments of this game. But they're not out of the woods yet. They're getting close, though. Next turn, they're probably out of the woods. I don't think that MaykaS is going to have their board survive next turn, even if they do top deck a Trifarian Assessor, and this is as good as Assessor's ever going to get. If you don't get it off on this draw 4, you're probably never getting it for more than like a draw 1 or a draw 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so we harped earlier too, because you said it's hard to deal with these Yetis, especially if you don't have Ruinations. We were harping earlier not having the Ruinations. I'm trying to think to myself, okay, this actually doesn't look bad for Gravetrayal because we have so many cards in hand. I mean, you have Heal, you have the Brute Awakening to stuff up the board too if that ever ends up coming down. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the hand of Gravetrayal. So I guess the question is, how does MaykaS really push for the game here? And I think MaykaS is still going to have a little bit of a problem. I mean, Karma's going to level up. We're going to get doubled up Withering Whales. This is going to be an issue.
The 4 damage, gain 12 whales is pretty much going to single-handedly end the game.
Yeah, that's not good.
What I am curious about is if Gravetrayal goes to play the Rekindler after all of this is said and done, all the units die, and MaykaS goes for the kill onto that Karma with, a Flash Freeze Calling Strike, does that save MaykaS? There's no other Karma immediately available, but because there's the Fading Memories onto the Rekindler potential, I think that Gravetrayal is going to guarantee a Karma at some point, and it'll probably be soon enough, especially given that we are going to have the Rekindler available this turn and again next turn, and then just play a bunch of fast spells in combat, clean everything up.
Yeah, that Fading Memory is actually a huge pickup. Fading Memory is such a versatile card, Can even use it on any of the Yetis on the side of MaykaS there, or the Trapper for that matter. I'm not sure the Trapper would ever be the right choice, but like you mentioned, Rekindler probably seems like just about the best target, and curious to see if Gravetrayal will respond with anything here. I think the answer is no. There's also an Unto Dusk in there, which, I mean, it's draw, so there's that. Just now actually seeing that in the hand of Gravetrayal. I don't really think there's too much that can be done here. Yeah, you just let the Karma die. Karma is in the death pool and going down to a measly 1 health. This is what Spooky Karma does best, Boulevard. We've seen this so many times. Come on, let's be honest. You go down to 1 and then they're at 20. Come on.
Here comes the Rekindler. if there's a kill from MaykaS onto the Karma, we can just run out Rekindler again on the next turn, and then none of this board is going to... Well, the 5/5 Yeti will survive, but nothing else is really going to survive through the double Withering Wail. And even if it does, it's not going to present lethal because 12 life will be gained on the side of Gravetrayal as well. Even a Vile Feast in hand to ensure that nothing lives through a Troll Chant.
There it is. There's the Rekindler. Flash Freeze, Culling Strike, I imagine, is going to be the choice here. I mean, I'm trying to think of a world where saving Flash Freeze, Culling Strike might do something to win the game for MaykaS. I think that is, nope, that's just never going to happen. So this does just kind of seem like the only thing MaykaS can do here, and just cross your fingers and hope that you are going to be able to go in on the following attack turn. But as we can see, you've mentioned it a few times, Boulevard, the doubled up double Withering Wail is insane.
Thinking about Will of Ioniaing onto the Karma.
I mean, where do you get any
things
value?
are a little dicey. If MaykaS draws a Troll Chant, or sorry, not a Troll Chant, a Culling Strike or a Reckoning, and gets the Culling Strike, that could be the one punish that you were looking for, is you can put that Karma down 2/3 attack thanks to the Troll Chant and then kill it. That's going to take away the Withering Wail ability to clean everything up. But you still aren't in that bad of a spot because you can still double Wail on the next turn.
Yeah, and yeah, this just delays the inevitable. Your board will still be cleared at some point.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get, you're getting at least a double Wail, which means you're healing 6. You're still getting rid of one of the Yetis. You have plenty of units on board to block. You're not dying. And you have a Vile Feast for this Ash. Like,
yeah, you're only on the 1 mana right now. Ash is actually going to level on the open attack. So we're only going to have 2 blockers available. If MaykaS can top deck Harsh Winds, I think they actually just win the game off of a Culling Strike, like very specifically Culling Strike into Harsh Winds top deck, but it's an Omen Hawk. Which is very different. And I do think that Gravetrayal shouldn't have too much of a problem surviving this onslaught.
Yeah. Yeah, would Harsh Winds? We have Will of Ionia.
Yeah, but you would have no blockers.
Yeah, hold on. I'm trying to... his hand disappeared, so I'm trying to see what other responses. We have 11 mana. We have Will. We have Vile, which does nothing. We have Wail. Yeah, I think that would have been enough to close out the game.
Maybe.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Didn't happen. Gonna survive a little bit longer here. Looks like it's gonna be Wail, probably Vile Feast as well. But Gravetrayal doesn't have Karma now. And they are losing most of their board, though, for what it is worth. So the Assessor now offline for pretty much the remainder of the game, and it's on to Gravetrayal. You know, can you find a way to slowly whittle down MaykaS before they can find their way back into this game? There are, whispered words and things along those lines that can maybe start to build up a big Assessor for MaykaS, but I don't see them, kind of sneaking this one out unless we can get into a board presence that's going to draw us multiple cards.
No, that is the Ruinationless Spooky Karma. Looking to be picking up a win here in just a second. Crystal Arrow off the top thanks to the leveled up Ash. I guess it helps you live a turn. There's that, I guess. We do have Go Hard to kill.
That's something. It's going to draw you a card as well.
Yep. Let's see what we got.
If we find an Ash, it doesn't mean anything. And instead we find a Brittle Steel.
And yep, there's the Go Hard, and this is where Spooky Karma just it's official. Spooky Karma has stabilized. MaykaS, I think, is a little bit too far behind.
1 HP power spike.
Yeah, yeah. Is that what we're calling it now? It's the 1 HP power spike.
It's always been the 1 HP power spike. I don't think a Gigas has ever won a game of Spooky Karma in his life without going down to 1 HP.
All right, there's River Shaper coming in too. Yeah, there we go. We get some value out of Brittle Steel.
Boom.
Still.
Brittle Steel.
Oh yeah.
The ideal turn 10 top decks.
So good. And Troll Chant, even better.
Yeah, this is what we were talking about, right? Just the complete wrong side of the deck drawn by MaykaS.
Yep. And that does mean MaykaS is going to go ahead, click that surrender button, and Gravetrayal just 1 game away from winning their first ever OLS. And from my recollection, this is their first top too, right?
I believe so. Meanwhile, MaykaS, no stranger to the top cut,
No.
yet unable to pick up a win in the online league series. Thought that they were on a hot streak and this might be the one, but newcomer Gravetrayal kind of sticking it to him. You know, I thought the 3 trapper was going to be enough. That seems like a very prominent opening against control deck, but instead it more so just like stunted us from finding additional draw power through like assessors, and that box turn was huge, getting a little bit overextended on the side of MaykaS, just softening those up in a way that was too efficient.
Not only a good opening for mid-range Frostbite, but a good opening versus a Ruination-less control deck, which is really what we thought might have been a little bit of an advantage there for mid-range Frostbite. But Gravetrayal doing a good job navigating around that. And here we go. We have yet another Ruination-less control deck in Anivia, also taking on mid-range Frostbite. And it's going to be tough. Apparently, the Ruination is not that big of a deal. Maybe it will be in this Anivia matchup. A lot worse of a hand, though, for MaykaS here.
Yeah, MaykaS just continuing to find some weird hands on this Frostbite midrange. Ashe being the first unit that you play throughout the entire game. Certainly not ideal. But you do find the Avarosan Trapper, Hearthguard, which is really pivotal in these control-centric matchups because it makes it a lot harder to board wipe your units, sets your assessors up to 5 attacks, so they will always at least draw a card on their own. And we're actually just not even playing anything on the side of Gravetrayal. And just saying, you know what? I'll take 5 damage. I don't care about that.
Yeah, I mean, early on, I guess it doesn't really matter. You can also play the Kindly Tavern Keeper after the fact. Heal up 3 of that damage. Yeah, it looks like that is going to be the choice here. Looks like you burn a mana. Not really too concerned about that, I don't think. Yeah.
What did you want him to do with that mana?
I don't know. You could play Vile
Bladed
Feast
Ravine because it's mana efficient. Take that, Ashe.
Always going to play mana efficient. Come on. But yeah, and this is a good free 3 damage too. I mean, generally speaking, not going to want to block with Ashe, or commit Troll Chant with the Ashe block. But I guess we are going to Culling Strike, which makes sense. You know, we have to try to have more tempo on board than Gravetrayal here, and getting rid of a unit does that. But having it responded to with Glimpse Beyond does not feel good, especially not with this start.
Yeah, and I think that we might look to get down, the Hearthguard this turn. As cool as LeBlanc is in these Shadow Isle matchups, especially the Freljord ones that have access to like Blighted Ravine and Avalanche, she's not going to do as much work, probably not going to stick around, and there's nothing you can do to save her from Ravine, which MaykaS, Gravetrayal, going to throw out regardless. And the Vile Feast, say, I'm going to kill this Ashe. I don't want to deal with Ashe right now. I just want to stare down this Hearthguard, and I will take my 5 to the face, but that's reasonable. I can deal with that.
Yeah, also losing that Spiraling, not even really caring about that. And I don't think MaykaS can just open attack here. Yeah, I think you do kind of have to start committing some more to the board. Unfortunately, just this LeBlanc, though, is really all we can commit. Yeah, we're going to get the Frostbite. We have the Omen Hawk, which I guess is okay because it does trade with this Iceveil Archer. So there's something, I guess, but looks like it was also actually buffed up thanks to the Avarosian Hearthguard.
Not only that, but I think that there's a Sentry coming down this turn that is just going to make the attacks for MaykaS near impossible. You can send in the Omen Hawk to trade. I was actually just going to throw them both out and say, you know, Troll Chant's coming out. It's probably the most value that I'm going to find out of it, but MaykaS, their deck does not seem to want to win this tournament.
Nope. This is a really good Troll Chant. You know, you're not really killing valuable units in the Iceveil and the Avarosian Sentry here, but you know, you are still keeping your board. That's really what matters here. The only issue is now you have an entire board full of 2 health units, and so because of that, we're actually going to put everything into saving the Hearthguard so it stays at a healthy 4 health. I do like that, a little bit stickier of a unit. And as you see, the Avalanche off the top as well. Awesome decision from MaykaS there, keeping that Hearthguard alive versus trying to also save that Omen Hawk. So I love the decision. Not sure if it's enough.
Now we'll see what comes out. Is it going to be Avalanche to try and kill this LeBlanc? Is it Anivia? Just kind of get on board a little bit, see where we go from there. But MaykaS, you know, just continuing to find these like mediocre units. First we talked like an Omen Hawk past its prime. Now we get an Iceveil Archer. And the Frostbite portion of the mid-range deck just not really working out into these control matchups and seeing a little bit too much of it, as well as just the early game, because I don't think we're necessarily seeing Omen Hawk as a widespread card in Frostbite midrange.
Yeah, I got to agree. Omen Hawk has definitely fallen off since the early days of midrange Frostbite. It's never necessarily a bad decision, but I got to agree with you on that one. Okay, gonna get the Ice Veil down simply just for tempo.
It's a 5/3, and that's cool and sticky, but we're really looking for units that do things, mostly Assessor, and instead we find yet another Omen Hawk.
Oh, man.
This is probably going to be the Harsh Winds, which is a little unfortunate for MaykaS because it does continue to delay the reputation necessary to get, sort of a discount onto that Incisive Tactician, which is sort of the blowout card that MaykaS has been hanging on to hope for, saying eventually maybe I'll find a window to get down this, this rally and end things if I can get a big commitment from mana onto Gravetrayal. But if the mana commitment is through Frostbite, rallying is inefficient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is not looking great. I mean, the Omen Hawk is a 3/3, so it's technically not terrible, thanks to the Hearthguard plus the previous Omen Hawk buff. And we do have an Incisive Tactician rally, which you just mentioned. So, I mean, maybe we get the... Do we get... Okay, if both of these 5 attacks hit, we actually get a reduced cost Incisive Tactician, which means we could also play the 3/3 Omen Hawk.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that really matters, considering we have enough mana for Harsh Winds and Flash Freeze, so the entire second wave, sort of, would get shut down.
Plus Ice Veil Archer.
So, I will say, I mean, Avalanche doesn't seem to be doing too much here, other than killing the LeBlanc, so that's going to feel pretty good for MaykaS anyways.
Yeah, that's why Frostbite midrange is usually something that you'll take into these Freljord control decks because the Avalanche is so inefficient. Most of your units are going to have 3 to 5 HP, especially once the Hearthguards start rolling. But LeBlanc always going to be a victim.
So this is good. I mean, we can develop the Omen Hawk. We don't really have anything else to do, which is unfortunate. Okay, yeah, just going to pass it on over. No need to develop it necessarily. Another LeBlanc off the top is okay if the Avalanche comes out. So, okay, here we go. We got the Avalanche. It's coming out. Right. We might have a decent couple of attacks coming up for MaykaS here.
Oh, actually? So, you Avalanche. If MaykaS plays Omen Hawk and then Gravetrayal plays Blighted Ravine, that Incisive Tactician will be kind of big. Not as big as you need it to be because there is still the Ice Veil Archer on the side of Gravetrayal that is not only going to Frostbite one of these units, but block another one, and actually just passes with the Blighted Ravine. Yeah, and MaykaS going to take that pass. This is a little dicey on the side of Gravetrayal, maybe playing a little bit too greedy with the pass button there because you don't have an answer for this open attack.
Yeah, I mean, you have Flash Freeze for 5 damage.
Yeah, you can Vengeance and Flash Freeze, but I think that was a pretty tempting Blighted Ravine, and even if the Tactician came down, I think the Ice Veil Archer made you more or less safe.
Yeah, but I like it, though. We were talking previously, I think it was What Am I's games that we were seeing. You got to be able to pass with this Anivia deck, and I do like that pass. It seems scary, passing into 13 damage. It's most cases, most decks, you're like, what the heck are you thinking? But in Anivia, you can afford to take that damage. You have the Blighted Ravine to heal up 2. You have the two Catalysts to heal up 6. You have more tools in your hand. The only problem is, where is Anivia? We haven't found her. Where's she at, Boulevard?
She died.
She's done. She's donezo's.
She already died this game. She's in the death pool.
Oh, is she already in the death pool? Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Never mind. I remember with LeBlanc now.
So it looks like we are actually going to get an okay push through here. The unfortunate part for MaykaS is that the Blighted Ravine is still going to go off next turn. They aren't pushing through, as much damage as they would want to this turn. It's just going to be 8. Going to put Gravetrayal down to 4 when all is said and done. But there is still that Harrowing that gets to come out.
Yeah, and the Glimpse for 2 more. I'm curious when
do you ever Troll Chant to save your Hearthguard?
Looks like the answer is yes. Yep. Yeah, and yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, that's the B for your unit you got. And the Omen Hawk's gonna live too. I'm curious to see when this Harrowing gets played, because if that Anivia is already in the death pool, like you mentioned,
it's gonna do a lot to clean up the board this turn.
Yeah. We got the attack token, and yeah, there it is. We're finally ripping it. Got the Harrowing here. Let's see. Troll Chant, not really going to be enough to save too much here. Harsh Wind's not going to do a whole lot either.
Yeah, Harsh Wind's really inefficient against decks like this.
I gotta say it's a pretty weak harrowing. This is the weakest harrowing that we've seen so far, with just that one Anivia having died.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be enough.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I mean, MaykaS so far behind, just on card advantage even right here. Although, granted, the 2 catalysts in hand are basically nothing cards. It's just 5 mana heal 3. But that could come into play a little bit later. Set up these 1 health units for a block. We are still going to save the Tactician and the Hearthguard. We have another Hearthguard in hand. And only 1 Anivia is going to be back as a blocker. We got Vengeance. So I think Gravetrayal is still okay with some sort of open attack coming in next turn.
Yeah, Gravetrayal should be pretty fine, especially since they still have like a Sentry that they can develop for an additional blocker.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have that Vengeance available if MaykaS goes for a development. We have the Iceveil Archer.
Yep, there's the Sentry. Yeah, this is looking like Gravetrayal has finally stabilized.
Vile Feast the pickup to kill the Tactician as well. This Harsh Wind's just sitting dead in MaykaS' hand, not doing anything here.
I would have liked the Trapper to get played. I'm not going to lie. I don't think you... Well, I guess another Avalanche you kind of walk into then with the Hearthguard and the Incisive Tactician. But
rough beats for MaykaS, but you know, it is what it is, and we're going to see Harsh Winds come out just to try and protect the HP of our units. It's all we can really do. Ash getting 3 out of 5 on that, because what else were we frostbiting in this matchup? And I think that Gravetrayal should be able to pick this up pretty soon. This Anivia is not going anywhere. It's going to continuously revive itself, chip away at the board. That's going to be a kill onto the Hearthguard next turn. And Trapper, you know, this is one of those things we talked about a lot in the past, where at this late stage of the game, you almost don't want to play the Trapper because drawing the Yeti is such a detriment if it's delaying something like Trifarian Assessor. But
yeah,
MaykaS hasn't found any Trifarians this entire match. No Assessors, no Glory Seekers, nothing.
Yeah, 100%. And we have... Oh, man. This is going to feel so bad, too. This is one of the slowest Anivia games that we've seen, in a sense that even the Harrowing wasn't really doing a whole lot. Like, it only gave us that 1 Anivia, and now we're slowly but surely trying to close things out. And it's looking like we're going to be able to do that from Gravetrayal. It's going to be a very slow and painful death here for MaykaS.
Yeah, MaykaS thinks that they have an opportunity to try and, like, sneak their way back into this, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's the 3rd Calling Strike that MaykaS just picked up. And a Brittle Steel? Are you kidding me? This is not...
That is not what you wanted to see.
Oh, the Frostbite mid-range just doesn't want to do it. Which, I actually talked this deck up an amount going into the weekend, being like, hey, I think this is a really nice meta choice. I think that a lot of the things that you're going to see aren't going to do very well into this. And now to watch it just flounder like it has been. You know, the Sivir Auction's doing sort of the same thing over the course of the weekend, just like floundering, finding the wrong cards at the wrong times. And Anivia, somehow, the deck that had a reputation for being, you know, really dependent on drawing that Anivia, not having a lot of ways to do it. And we've cast dozens of matches where players just didn't find the Anivia until the bottom 5 cards of the deck, lost the game because of it. Is somehow the pillar of consistency on the weekend.
Yeah, Calling Strike coming out there, gonna delay the inevitable again. Barely living here on the side of MaykaS. 2 Avarosian Trappers in hand, gonna not really do anything here. And we see both Shen emotes coming up. Yeah,
it's probably gonna be the double catalyst.
Man, Anivia just killing it today and yesterday, Boulevard. So many players bringing it. We saw one make it to the semifinals. We see another paired with Spooky Karma in the finals, and we just saw it earlier. The first game from Gravetrayal versus MaykaS was Spooky Karma versus this mid-range Frostbite. Ruinationless Spooky Karma was able to take down mid-range Frostbite. Now we got Ruinationless Anivia taking down mid-range Frostbite, and now we have Gravetrayal as the OLS 30 champion.